That's always a good thing.
Yeah,
Rebirth and regeneration and hopefully creating something better than
let's hope
before.
so. We all
Yeah.
need it. We're all ready.
Yeah, we are. We are collectively for sure. Okay, well, hello everyone, and welcome to Spirit Matters. I'm thrilled to have Amreen Choudhury of divinekitten.com with me today. Amreen is a very gifted and brilliant astrologer, humanitarian, spiritual guide, and I'm thrilled to have her on the show, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of her insights with everybody. So, welcome, Amreen. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Like, oh my
Oh,
God, I was thinking, are you talking about me or
I
someone
sure am.
else?
I sure am.
But thank you so much. I feel so honored, Susanna, to be a part of this YouTube community that you're actively building. So I feel
Thank you.
absolutely blessed and honored that you've reached out to me to share some of my thoughts about astrology.
Thank you so much, Amreen. Let me start by asking you. So you have so many accomplishments in so many different fields, so many talents. What got you interested in astrology?
That's a really good question. The first time I came across astrology was when I was a little girl. My birthplace is Bangladesh, and
Hmm.
then my family immigrated to Canada when I was young. I grew up in Canada, close to you, most of my life in Ontario,
Hmm.
but I grew up in Ottawa, Ontario. For those who don't know, Ottawa is the nation's capital, and Susanna is in Windsor, Ontario. So we're what
Yes.
several hours away from one another. So
Yes.
the first time I came across an astrology book was the book was in Bengali when I was a little
Hmm.
girl in Bangladesh, and I
Yes.
remember I couldn't put it down. It was a thick book too, and I read it. I read the whole thing without stopping from beginning until the end. I was absolutely fascinated by it and mesmerized by it. And there's no one in my family who are astrologers or who are into esoteric matters or in that kind of a
Mhm.
profession. So I didn't even realize that such professions exist.
Yeah.
Um, and throughout my life, astrology kept coming to me over and over again. When I was a teenager, of course, I started reading about the sun signs and the
Mhm.
planets and so on and so forth. Again, I was fascinated. And then later, I learned about the houses in astrology and how to read
Mhm.
natal charts. But I was never planning to be an astrologer. It's something I started openly practicing since 2019. Prior to that, I was in the field of international development.
Mhm.
Um, During that time, I worked with various international organizations and humanitarian organizations, including Oxfam and the United Nations, and I was
Mhm.
posted in multiple countries for long periods of time. But I was always super fascinated by astrology and kept taking courses, including one-on-one mentorship. And I would look at my coworkers' charts and so on. So they're the ones who encouraged me. They're the ones who said, you should become a professional astrologer and offer this as your service.
Mhm.
And hence here I am offering it as a service. And I'm living
So
in
the
UK now. Sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the beautiful thing about the your insights and what you share with people based in astrology is that you have that wonderful background of international knowledge, international affairs, humanitarian causes and projects and efforts. And I really love how you, when you do your predictions and your insights, you tie so many things together all at once that it really makes it so enlightening and real and relatable to what's going on in the world right now. So, well, then tell me, please, how does astrology work?
Wow, how does it work?
Yes.
You must have heard the phrase, Susanna, as above, so below, because you yourself have been in the esoteric field like forever.
Yes. Yes, forever.
Yeah. That pretty much sums up how astrology works. In
Mhm.
other words, whatever is going on in the sky is mirrored in our lives and vice versa. The ways in which the planets interact in the sky are reflected at the collective level and also at the individual level, of course, when certain planets or certain astrological phenomenon touch a specific part of our charts. And our charts are as unique as our fingerprint. Even for
Mhm.
identical twins, there are no duplicate charts. And the planets carry certain energies, and so do we. And
Mhm.
these energies get reflected um, in our action, in the way we think, in the way we feel. For instance, are you someone who takes action before first having a strategy? Like, do you dive in before you know how to swim? That can be me at times. Or
Yes. Yes, I do.
or are you someone who's strategic, who's a plan before forging ahead, or do
Mhm.
you weigh the pros and cons before taking steps? So that's reflected in our unique birth charts, how we use that energy that's already written in the
Mhm.
sky from the moment we take our first breath.
Right,
So
right.
in a nutshell, that's how it works. But there are different types of astrology as well, Susanna. I practice Western tropical zodiac astrology. There's Chinese astrology, which I don't know much of, but we were kind of talking about it earlier because it is
Right.
Chinese New Year's today. And there's Vedic astrology from India, which uses a different
Yes.
system and so on and so forth.
Yes, I've looked at some Vedic astrology as well, and there is a lot of similarity, I think, to
Right.
tropical, but there's a lot of differences as well. So um, it's yeah, fascinating. You know what? I like to compare all of them for
Yeah.
what little time and knowledge that I have. It's nice to have an overview of all the different systems, and I like to cherry pick what I like. So whatever works, right? If it makes
Right.
sense, it makes sense. Yeah. So for somebody who's new to astrology,
Mhm.
um, a lot of us know about almost everybody knows their sun sign.
Right. Right.
Aquarius, Pisces, Taurus, Gemini.
Yeah.
Um, is that the most important thing to know in astrology? Because I mean, there's also the moon sign, your rising sign, your ascendant. There's so many planetary placements. So when you look at somebody's chart, what stands out to you?
That's a really good question. The rising sign or the ascendant, that's the first thing I look at.
Uh-huh.
And the ascendant, which is also known as the rising, is the sign that was in the east, rising in the eastern horizon at the exact
Mhm.
moment and location of your birth. So in order to know your rising sign, you would have to know the exact timing and location. If you don't know, there's a technique in astrology called rectification when an astrologer
Yes.
can help you figure that out, but that's pretty time consuming and expensive, and it
Mhm.
takes several consultations before they can pin it down.
Right,
But
because you're working backwards actually and trying to this is the end result, so how did we get there kind of thing when you're trying to
exactly.
figure that out in the chart. Yeah, yeah.
The astrologer looks at major life events from the past, like 5, 6 different major life events, like for instance, a time when you relocated to a different country, or loss of a loved one, and so on and so forth, or the time you moved out of your parents' home, and so on and so forth, to be able to figure out what the exact timing, or close to the exact timing of your birthplace. Having said that, I don't offer that service because it's just so time consuming.
Right.
50% of my clients, almost 50% of my clients don't know their exact time of birth. So there are
Got
other
it. Right.
techniques to look at one's chart and analyze as well. But when I look at someone's time of birth, or it close enough, I look at the ascendant first.
Right.
I also look at what's called the angles in astrology. There are 4 angles. So the most important one is the rising or the ascendant, because that reflects who you are. That's your gateway into this world. That's how you view the world. And that's also, it represents the way others see
The
you.
way others see you. Yes, I was just going to ask you, isn't that how others see you? Um,
Absolutely.
yes.
So I look at that and the other angles. So the other angles are descendant, which is opposite from the ascendant, and the descendant represents the other. For instance, it could be your spouse, it could be a business partner, it could even represent clients if you're in a field where you're working with clients. And so ascendant, descendant, and there's IC, which is at the lowest point of a chart, which represents your home, including your physical home, and also represents the home you grew up in, or your upbringing, and your parents. And in ancient astrology, the IC represents the father. And on top,
Oh,
and opposite from IC is the MC, also known as the midheaven, which is at the
yes.
highest point of a chart. And that represents one's vocation or profession or true calling. It's your public reputation. And in ancient astrology, it represents the mother. So when I look at someone's
Oh,
chart, I look at those angles, starting from the ascendant, to see if there are any planets there, because that will give me plenty of information immediately before I get to the sun signs and the moon signs.
oh, interesting. Okay, okay. Because most people think of astrology as where's my sun, where's my moon, and where are certain planets in the chart. So you're not necessarily like really looking at that first. You're looking at the chart itself and looking at all the angles and so on. Is that how you
Yeah, I
start
mean, of
off
course.
with the reading? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off,
Okay.
Susanna. I
No,
was
no,
just
you didn't. You
Yes,
didn't.
of course, the sun is also important. But I would say the ascendant is just as important, if not more, than the sun sign, because again, it represents the moment you took your first breath. And when a transiting means moving planet, where a planet is at the current moment, when it
Mm-hmm.
triggers, when it activates your ascendant, that can be a life-changing, especially if it's a slow-moving planet like Pluto or Neptune, for instance, or if an eclipse hits your ascendant or any of the other angles, that's life-changing. So I pay a lot of attention to that. But the sun is just as important because that's your spark of life.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the sun itself, it shows how you shine and where you shine. And a moon is important as well, especially in Vedic astrology, although I'm not a Vedic astrologer, but the moon
Mm-hmm.
represents your emotional body, how you process feelings and emotions, and also what makes us feel secure and happy at a
Yeah.
subconscious level that we may not even be aware of.
Okay. That yes. Well, that makes sense to me. Yes, definitely. I'm just even just thinking about myself, how I don't pay a lot of attention to my moon is in Capricorn. I don't really. think about that, but then if I really want to examine that, yes, it makes sense that that would be the way I process things, and not, it may not be the way I act or behave or show on the surface to other
Right.
people, but that might be where the processing happens, right?
And I see the
Yeah.
Capricornian quality in you. I know that you mentioned before that I don't relate to your moon as much, which is
Yes.
I mean there are different factors that go into um why someone is more in touch with their moon signs than others. I'm not going to get into all that, but for you I
Yeah.
see that Capricornian moon because you're very structured, you work extremely hard. These are some of the Capricornian qualities. You're like a
Mhm.
dog with a bone when you want to make something happen, and you're very committed to what you do, and you have this deep sense of obligation for others, and which is such a beautiful quality, but you can also end up neglecting your own emotional needs in the process, constantly worrying about others and trying to protect others, like the stray cats in your
Yeah.
neighborhood that you talk about. So I see this Capricornian quality about you trying to protect others and making others, your loved ones, making sure that they feel that they're protected and thinking long term with your vision. And then you have an Aquarius sun, and hence you're building this community because Aquarius is about
Mhm.
community and being part of a community and for the greater good. That's why I
Definitely.
love your vision for your YouTube channel.
Thank you.
But at the
Thank
same
you so
time,
much.
you have a super creative side with your ascendant in Leo, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, all of that. But I have to laugh when you say dog with a bone, because I just said that to somebody the other day. I'm not giving up on I was trying to research something, figure something out. I said, I'm like a dog with a bone. I won't let go until I've seen it through, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's really cool that you said that.
But it
Um, Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but it's such at a subconscious level that you don't even realize unless you
Right.
analyze or you or you're introspective about it. But
Mhm.
it's just who you are at a natural level that you may not be fully conscious of. So that's how the moon works.
That's very, very interesting. The way you explain that, it makes a lot of sense to me. Um, yeah, you just took a brief look at my chart the other day too when we were chatting, and you just the way you explain things clarifies a lot of questions that people have. Let's talk again briefly about. We talked about this before. Um, is Do the planets? How should I put it? Do they form our destiny or our fate, or how much of let's go back to as above, so below. So I've always believed that as well. I think it's like a reflection, a mirror. This is from what little I know. But if somebody has their chart read, for instance, and um, they're told that this will happen at that time, or something else will happen at that time, and whatever. Is that kind of like a fated event, or is it something that is totally in their control, or is it something in between? Like,
I
let's say you're going to move overseas when you're 40, according to your chart.
Right.
Um, how much of that is fate and how much is free will?
I love that question. And
Thank
I know
you.
that there are astrologers out there who say that most things, if not pretty much everything, is fated, or that everything's destined. And there's also the other type on the other end of the spectrum who believe in free will and that we make things happen because of our willpower and so on. I
Mhm.
am someone who's in the middle. I think it's a dance between destiny and free will. I mean, there's no question certain things are fated or
Mhm.
destined for which we have little or no control over. It's external circumstances that happen to us. But I also believe that we have the free will to take steps and action with what we have at the moment.
Mhm.
Or at the very least, we can shift our focus towards what we want to materialize in our lives with the cards we're dealt, while also respecting that certain things will happen when the timing is correct, and that there's certain
Mhm.
things we don't have any control over. And no matter how hard we try to push, it won't happen until the lightning strikes. So to me,
Mhm.
it's a dance between the two. And the way I practice astrology is balancing these two factors. And one thing astrology is very helpful for is knowing what's activated at the moment. Is taking
Right.
action favorable, and what kind of action and where in our lives? Or do we hold off on taking action until the timing is better, and so on and so
Right.
forth? Um, and so, yes, to me, it's balancing both. I think if
Mhm.
someone, to me, someone who's just waiting for things to happen, like that's a very debilitating state to be in. Like, someone like that could be pushed around by external circumstances, and they can constantly
Mhm.
feel like a victim, and they can feel like they've
Mhm.
like, very little power over anything. On the other hand, if you're the other kind who relies on free will and your willpower, then you will hit the brick wall soon. You're trying to control everything, and you become stressed out and even burnt out from the
Mhm.
process. And it's not a fun or magical way to live.
Mhm.
So to me, astrology is both. Like for instance, I know that you've been in the field of publishing for a long time.
Yes.
And publishing is something that must be highlighted in your chart. I didn't take a
Mhm.
I didn't do a deep dive into your chart, but I'm assuming it
Mhm.
has to be there. It's highlighted over and over again. So,
Yes.
so opportunities to publish came to you at different stages of your life. Having said this, if you weren't writing or editing or both throughout your life, it wouldn't matter how many opportunities to publish came to you. It wouldn't make much of a difference, right? So to
Right. Mhm.
me, it's kind of the definition of luck, my favorite definition of luck, when preparation meets opportunity. So that's the best use of astrology, using our free will to do what we can at the moment, given what we have, and waiting for the right timing. And you can definitely come to an astrologer like myself to know what the timing and what the phases of our lives are favorable for, while exercising your free will.
That makes so much sense. Um, and based on that, I have another question for you. Um, would it be, or is it valuable for your clients to maybe have you look at their chart and figure out why things may not have worked out in the past? Um, maybe question decisions that they made or didn't make, or events that happened, whether negative or positive. Is it worthwhile looking at that um, in terms of the past to gain lessons and guidance going forward? Does that make sense?
100%. Yes. And that's again really good use of astrology. Sometimes it's our blind spots as well that others
Mhm.
can see, but we cannot. And an astrologer can help you look into that. You have to be really open-minded, of course, and the astrologer
Mhm.
has to be really good in conveying that kind of message. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's certain patterns that keep repeating itself based on one's behavior or one's mindset that can keep them from getting what they want. Absolutely, there's that factor. And there's also this timing. For instance, maybe the timing was correct for or more favorable for other things. Like for instance, when I'm now married, but when I was in my international postings, when I was overseas, I was by myself. And a marriage probably would have been very difficult for me trying to balance and overseas postings where sometimes you work from like 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. in a foreign country. Um, you know, versus where at this stage of my life doesn't mean that no one can be married if they're working overseas. You know, I've certainly seen couples and families and so on and so forth. But looking back, it just it wasn't favorable for the type of marriage that I have right now. So astrology can provide clues to that. Like for instance, I've seen charts of people where pregnancy is highlighted, and they weren't planning to have a child, but few months down the road, I hear that, yes, you know, you're right. I found out that I am expecting, that during this time when you said that where pregnancy is highlighted, and that changes the direction of their life for that time, because now their priorities change, and they're, you know, waiting for a child rather than starting or launching a new business that they were planning to before that, and so on and so forth. So yes, I think I believe your question is, can astrology show why certain things didn't have during a certain time? So the person I'm thinking about, the client, yes, if she were to launch her business then, it would have been overwhelming for her because the pregnancy was highlighted. So yes, astrology can provide clues to that. But sometimes it's also other things. Like if someone says, why am I not meeting someone like a romantic partner? I also want to know, are they going out or making themselves available to meet others?
Right.
You know, of course, maybe someone can just knock on their door all of a sudden and just happen to be the right match and so on and so forth. Are they making themselves available by being out and about and so on and so forth?
And that goes for any kind of spiritual coaching or how should I put it? Life coaching, life advice for people. You've got to keep yourself open and even more than that, put yourself out there for whatever opportunities you're looking for, whether that be a partner, a job, anything. If you're not available, the opportunity is going to have a harder time to find you.
Yes,
Definitely.
but
So,
you're right. But maybe they're taking action at the wrong time. Maybe, for
mhm.
instance, they make themselves available or they download a dating app when Venus is retrograde, and Venus goes retrograde 18 months, and
Mhm.
that's usually not the best time to when it comes to new romance, you know? So maybe they
Right.
somehow they just end up doing it at the most unfavorable times. So
Right.
as an astrologer, I can help them out with that regard. And I can say, okay, these phases look great for romance. This is when you should be out and about, or this is when you should take some steps, or at the very least be open to meeting new people. And these are the dates and timelines according to your own birth chart. So
Yeah.
that's really powerful knowledge to have. Or if you want to launch a new business, like right now, Mars is retrograde as we speak. Today is January 30th, 2025. And overall, it's not the best time to launch a new business because Mars is an action planet. It's about momentum and whatnot. So overall, But if you're going back to an old project, like you had your YouTube channel for a few years, but now you're almost
Mhm.
trying to grow it, and I wouldn't call it revive it, but you're trying to build it into something where a community can join and others can participate. And you started doing that during Mars retrograde. So you're going back to something you already had and revising it and rebuilding it and honing it further. So that's good use of Martian energy when it's retrograde.
What is the time period for Mars being in retrograde this time
Oh,
around?
yeah, I think it will go direct in February. I can't remember the exact date. I know I have it written down, and I don't have my ephemerides with me, but mid-February to third week of February when it will turn direct.
Yeah, okay. And let's talk about one of your favorite topics, I know, Pluto.
Oh, okay. I think what, yeah.
So Pluto being in Aquarius right now for good. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, basically for good because it was bouncing back and forth. What is the time period for that roughly? When did it
Until,
enter Aquarius for the last time?
yeah, well, just to give a little background, it takes
Mhm,
Pluto 248 years to travel through all the 12 zodiac signs.
mhm,
So, therefore, we haven't experienced Pluto in Aquarius in our lifetime until
right.
now. So it first entered Aquarius, where it's at right now, back in March. I believe it was March 2023.
20. Oh, okay.
March 2023. So it
Mhm,
it dipped its toes into Aquarius for a few months in March
mhm.
2023. And then it went retrograde and went back to Capricorn
Capricorn.
in 2023. Then
Mhm,
in 2024, last year, it returned to Aquarius again from January until September, when it traveled back to Capricorn when it was in
mhm,
retrograde motion to tie up loose ends in that sign.
mhm.
And since November of 2024, it re-entered Aquarius, and it will stay here until 2044, until January 2044. So almost 20 years, almost 2 decades. So that's
That's
a
a
long.
long-term relationship. Yeah.
It certainly is. So
Yeah.
it's like a marriage. So
Mhm,
make peace with Pluto, especially if you are feeling its impact, its influence directly, like I am.
mhm,
And
mhm.
you're an Aquarius sun, it will conjunct your sun at one point or another. And I
Mhm.
forgot which degree your sun is at. So it'll take several years before it gets close to your sun, but then you will feel its
Okay.
direct impact. Uh,
So, who would be feeling it the most right now, in terms
that's a
of,
really
yeah.
good question. People like me who have an Aquarius ascendant at the
Mhm,
early degrees. I believe today, Pluto is at 2 degrees. And I have my Aquarius ascendant is at 3 degrees, 56 minutes. I'm being super specific here. So pretty
yeah.
soon, like I think by March, it will be right on my ascendant, and it's getting close. And
Mhm,
that is life-changing. And that's also a rare phenomenon because, as I've said, it takes Pluto 248 years to travel through all the zodiac signs, all 12 signs of the zodiac. So not everyone experiences Pluto on their ascendant like I will. And
mhm,
this is also the case if you have your luminaries in Aquarius. Luminaries mean the moon or the sun. These are known as luminaries in astrology. So if you have that in Aquarius or the opposite sign, Leo, Leo is the
mhm.
opposite sign of Aquarius, you will feel Pluto's impact more deeply compared to others. Others can feel it too, but it's the conjunction. Conjunction means when it's close to your a planet or an angle. And opposition means when a planet is opposing an angle or a personal planet or a planet that rules your ascendant. They
Mhm.
will feel it at an individual level. It will have a deep impact for them. So it's 2025 now. So if you have Aquarius or Leo, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant, let's say between 1 to 4 degrees, you will feel Pluto's presence in
What
your.
so what is something that somebody would feel with a Pluto presence? Give me
Mhm.
some examples of what Pluto brings to the table.
Yeah, well, deep transformation from the inside out and outside in. So ascendant represents our bodies, ourselves. So it can impact your body. For instance, someone may look very different from what they did. So maybe a year from now, I don't know, maybe I'll have blue hair, or maybe I'll cut my hair really short. So I don't know that yet. Or it could change their viewpoint of the world if it's on your ascendant, because ascendant is also how you approach the world. It can have a dramatic shift, but it's a slow process. It won't happen overnight. It's based on things you see, you witness, you experience yourself. So it could
Mhm.
look like you cut many ties or cut ties with many people in your life because they may be toxic to you, or they may be holding you back, or their values are no longer in sync with yours.
Mhm.
So Pluto is also a process of purging. When you have a direct, when you feel the impact of a Pluto transit quite individually, it's about purging the old paradigm, or getting rid of the old paradigm to build something new. So, which is not always fun. Like, let's say you're cutting
No.
ties with people who you were close to all your lives. It can be a
Mhm.
pretty painful process at times.
Definitely.
Or it
Definitely.
could be cutting ties with the country you live in.
Mhm.
It could be like, I've just had it. I don't like the system I'm a part of, or I don't like the government in my country, and I'm just ready to relocate and start fresh somewhere new. So it's a pretty deep transformative process. And for that, I have to look at someone's chart to look at exactly what areas of their lives are Pluto highlighting, like
Mhm.
what's going through that drastic, deep transformation at a deep level. And there won't be any going back. It's
Right.
irreversible once you've gone through that.
Yes. Yes, with Pluto. Definitely. So would you need to look at somebody's chart in depth or in detail to um I mean, it sounds like Pluto can be a lot about closing doors, firm,
Yeah,
shut, done. Um, would that necessarily equate to new doors being open, new opportunities like right away, or might it take a long time? Or is this, I'm just talking about in general, or would it be different for every person?
that's a good.
Would you have to look at each and every individual's chart to see to kind of hone into that, like, okay, if I'm going to say no or finish with whatever aspect of my life was before, is there going to be something to replace it, a new opportunity, something else to move forward to, or how soon that might happen? I'm
That's
not
a
sure if I'm phrasing that right, but
you're,
if you
yeah,
understand the question, then please help me out.
you phrase it perfectly. With Pluto, it is a slow process. So, for
Mhm,
instance, let's say your income has been impacted. For
mhm,
instance, you lost your job, or you're laid off and you no longer have a stable income that you used to.
Mm,
Like that fell apart and there's no going back to that. So now
mm,
you'll be learning new ways to make an income. So it's
mhm,
not going to happen overnight. It's a slow process. But at the same time, uh, Pluto is associated with the Greek god Pluton, I believe. I don't know how the name is pronounced, Pluton or Ploton, which is associated with wealth. And it's the type of well you find underground, like minerals and riches, for which you have to dig deep. So to find your plutonic wealth, you have to dig deep within yourself,
mm,
or maybe literally, maybe you go into the
mm.
business of minerals, for instance. I don't know. Or it could be both. So you go through this transformation and you go deep to get to that wealth. And it could be an uncomfortable process.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
which is symbolic. For instance, after the example of someone losing their job or they're laid off and they no longer have a stable income that they did for decades. So now they're trying to find a new ways to generate income. Maybe they launch a
mhm,
business or multiple businesses, but it's a
mhm.
steep learning curve for them and they feel really alone and isolated. That's also another thing with the Pluto transit. When it hits you individually, you feel alone, you feel isolated.
I
It's,
was going to, yes, I was going to equate it to maybe the Hermit card in tarot. I'm not
yeah,
sure how closely it relates, but it's kind of like, okay, so now I'm here. Now I've learned all this stuff, and now I've got some wisdom, experience, deep insights, but it might take me some time to process all of that. And I may be alone while I'm doing it, or in some kind of solitude. I'm not saying physically alone, but just something that needs to be kind of worked through. And that's the feeling I get
yeah,
from how you're describing it.
yeah, and also a lot of fear that, a fear that it may not work out. Of course, fear of
Mhm,
rejection. But
mhm,
there's something going on deep within. It's not just about taking
mhm,
action. Okay, I started this business and I started that business, but it's also like, oh my God, I worked so hard for that company for 30 years and I've been laid off, I've
right,
been so
right,
loyal to them, that kind of resentment that you have to address. And you
mhm,
feel like, in the new world, it's so everything's moving so quickly and it's accelerating. How you're going to catch up? It feels overwhelming. You feel lost and powerless. That's the word. Pluto first makes you feel powerless by taking things away and
mhm,
forces you to find your power by going deep within. So you can rise up from the ashes like the
mhm,
phoenix that we
mhm.
often see when it's the symbol of Pluto, the phoenix rising from the ashes. So
Yeah,
something that's
yeah,
been taken away and that was important to you and valuable to you, like the world you knew collapsed and you're at the
mhm,
bottom, and then you have to find your strength back. You have to get back on your feet slowly, and then you fall again and you're not sure and you're crawling, then you get back again, then you're confused and you think you're making
mhm,
progress, but not really, curveballs thrown at you. You're like, oh my God, I cannot do this. And finally said, you know what? I'm tired. I'm
mhm,
tired of this. I will make it happen no matter what, because Pluto can
mhm,
give you willpower as well. If you need willpower, my goodness, use Plutonic, the power of Pluto, or tap into the energy of Pluto to do that. Finally, like, I'm gonna make that happen. I'm not
mhm,
scared anymore. I'm tired of being scared. Okay, it's scary, but I'll look at fear straight in the eye and will make it happen anyway. So let's see what happens. So that's when you
yeah,
find your power and you start rising from the ashes, and you may even become a powerful figure yourself and may even become quite wealthy yourself. Things you're afraid to try before because you were in a lifestyle you became so comfortable with. If it wasn't yet, taken away from you, would have never
Mhm.
taken this journey that was frightening, but you managed to find your
Mhm.
power to get through it and even thrive by overcoming different challenges and obstacles.
I think many of us don't realize how strong we actually really are
Yeah.
because well, life itself is like that. You have to,
Yeah.
you fall down, you get up. You fall down, you get up. You go a little bit further up, and then you might fall down again. And so many times throughout our life, we have to recreate ourselves. We have to pick up, dust off, and start over, whether it's in small ways or very large ways. So, yeah, it's fascinating. Well, Amreen, I would love to talk to you for hours about Pluto, but let me ask you one more question before we end the show. So, um, tell me what are you predicting right now for the
Ooh, what
world?
am I predicting for the world?
Yeah.
It's a continuation of my prediction from since 2020.
Mhm.
Like I've been saying, even before Pluto entered Aquarius, that celebrity culture will start to dismantle, and there'll be a fall of celebrity culture, for instance. And now we're seeing that all around us. And the reason for that is because celebrity culture is associated with Leo, and Leo is the opposite sign from Aquarius. So
Mhm.
Pluto is opposing, will be opposing all the degrees of Leo while it travels through Aquarius for another 2 decades. So we're seeing a collapse, and Aquarius is also a sign of the people. It represents the collective. So it is
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
empowering the collective, sometimes in painful ways, of course. A lot of the people collectively, they don't know their own power. Like it's a process until they're pushed to the corner, or they're pushed around by others or by external circumstances. Finally, they say, you know what, we want to take our power back, whether it's in little ways, well, or big ways, like you're doing, like building a community of like-minded people who can connect with one another online.
Mhm.
So the fall of celebrity culture is irreversible. We will see this trend accelerate. And other things that I see falling are royal families around the world, including the most well-known royal family that we know of. I wouldn't be surprised if they step down,
Yes.
because again, royalty is associated with Leo, which is the opposite sign from Aquarius. And in an era
Yeah.
where Aquarian energy is highlighted, there's very little tolerance for any kind of institutions that are based on hierarchy and rank.
Mhm.
Uh, when it comes to more specific predictions, last year, one of the celebrity prediction I made was that Jennifer Lopez would get a divorce. I think I first wrote a post about it back in August of 2024, and in September, it was announced her and her Ben split at that
Yes.
time.
Yes.
I predict 2025 will be even more difficult for her compared to 2024.
Mhm. Mhm.
She's associated, her association with Diddy back in 1999, or when that shooting took place, when she was in a
Yes.
relationship with him, that
Right.
will come back to haunt her. It's already
Mhm.
being talked about. There are so many rumors flying
Right.
around. I wouldn't be surprised at all if she gets involved in some kind of legal entanglement of some sort, if she has to appear in court for that, or
Mhm.
if she's investigated for that. I think this is even a harder year for her compared to 2024. So those are my general predictions, and we will see
Mhm.
more new social media platforms. It's
Yes.
already,
Yes.
and the ones we're using right now, the The most popular ones right now will become obsolete sooner than you think. And I also think there will be social media platforms that will respect people's privacy and will not censor as much. So
Things are changing already. And again, sorry to interrupt you, but even with alternative media or broadcasters and journalists being welcomed into governments like the US now and so on. There's so much change happening. And again, it's almost like the Aquarian energy where common people, grassroots stuff is kind of rising up and making its way through various areas in society, and I think that's a great thing. But I'm just always amazed at your newsletters, the predictions that you make, the both on a personal level and on a geopolitical and current events level. I'm going to be putting all your links and information. Anybody who wants to contact Amreen, all the information will be online under the video in the description box. Amreen, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for all your time. This was, I learned so much, and I'm sure our viewers did too. And I hope to have you back really soon because I've got about 100 more questions for you. So how does that sound?
and thank you so much, Susanna, for having me. Again, I feel absolutely honored to be a part of your community. And I can't wait for more interaction. For those who don't know, whenever Susanna and I speak, when we're off camera, we just cannot stop talking. It's you almost have to pull us apart to make us stop talking.
That's very true.
Both of us are chatterboxes when we're interacting with one another. So thank you so much. It's really my honor being here. And
Thank you, my darling. Namaste.
namaste. Congratulations on your revived YouTube channel. I'm loving
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. As soon
I
as we
watch
get enough numbers on there, enough followers on there, I'll be doing some community events and so on. We're working hard toward that. And with people like you part of it, I'm just thrilled and delighted. Can't wait.
I can't wait either. So thank you,
Thank
sweetheart.
you. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Thank you. See you soon.
See you soon.